Assalamu alaikum and welcome to the Tread the Path podcast, the podcast from Kufi Productions, where we explore the inspiring journeys of Muslim professionals across diverse industries. I'm your host, Salman Hasan, and each week we sit down with the remarkable individuals who are making their mark in the chosen fields to highlight their successes and challenges in their journey, as well as examining corporate accountability within the industry, providing practical resources for aspiring professionals and also offering actionable advice on career advancement and ethical navigation to those who want to tread their path. So today, I am honored to be joined by Amaney Kazlak, founder of Sacred Soulmates. Amaney started as a civil engineer and worked in that role for more than 7 years. And then she went on to working at ICNA Relief as a resource development coordinator. And then after that, she began Sacred Soulmates, which was about 3 years ago. Alhamdulillah. So she has, mashallah, very experienced in many aspects of the professional track or the professional life, if you will. But before we dive in, let me remind our listeners that you can find the show notes and resources and also ways to connect with our guest speakers in the Treaded Path archive in kufiproductions.com. So with that, Amaney, assalamu alaikum, and thank you so much for joining us today.
I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Of course, pleasure is mine. Before we dive into your story, let's give our listeners a brief overview of what you do in your current role and your current capacity.
Yeah, so Alhamdulillah, I started Sacred Soulmates about 3 years ago. So right now it's a very small company. We focus on relationship coaching for those seeking to get married quickly, not those taking the scenic route. And so we work with men and women individually to help them become the partner and become the husband and wife that they want to be. Not just get married, but become the person that is meant to uplift the ummah. Like, I don't want people to just get married. I want people to be in strong marriages that uplift the ummah. So if
Right.
that sounds like you, then you can join. If you just want to get married and pop out kids, you could do that on your own. I feel like, yeah, the Sahaba, like, they had solid relationships that went beyond the family. So, right, they popped out the kids,
Absolutely.
but they were visionaries, right? And so if you want to be a visionary, you have to have a strong marriage. You have to marry the right person, because if you're in the wrong marriage, it's going to bring you down. Versus if you're in the right marriage, it'll uplift you and it'll uplift the ummah. So that's my vision. If that sounds like something you want to be a part of, please do reach out, inshallah. And yeah, I do everything under the sun because, like I said, we're a small team. And yeah, until I learn better and then I could do better.
Inshallah. Yeah, no, definitely for Sacred Soulmates, there's, I'm sure, a lot of people who would be interested, but the kind of services that you offer, I'm sure they will always be in demand. So if you're looking to, find the proper soulmate, have a loving and beautiful relationship, and through which you can build a family, a man is your go-to. Alhamdulillah. But let's start from the beginning of your story, of your professional life, I guess. Tell us about what initially drew you to civil engineering and your educational journey, if you will. How did you begin that story?
Yeah, sure. So when I was in high school, I knew one thing. I enjoyed math better than reading and writing and read this book and write an essay and analyze, and I was just like lost half the time. So math came easily to me. And so when I was looking into, like, okay, that's all I know about myself. What do people that love math do? I knew like three things. They either become engineers, they become accountants, or they become teachers. I was like, there's no way I'm going to be a teacher repeating myself 20 times in a day. So I set out. Then accounting just sounded very redundant. And I was like, and it sounded too easy. So I need a little bit of challenge. So I was like, okay, let me do engineering. And so alhamdulillah, I got accepted into my dream school. I went to Stevens. I'm in New Jersey, so it was right there. It was convenient. So I just
Alhamdulillah.
I found myself in engineering school, just didn't know what the engineers did. Like, you know, a year and a half in, I have to declare what major I am. And I'm like, I don't know the difference between electrical engineers and mechanical. never even thought about civil. So I remember I was talking to an upperclassman at the time, and she was like, "Oh, I think you should go talk to like the career development office." I was like, I don't even know what that is. So I had to like look it up. What? And I told them like I don't know. I don't know how to declare my major. Like I don't know the difference between any of these. And so Alhamdulillah Stevens had this program where you can go and spend the day with an engineer of your choice. So I was like, I think civil engineering sounds right. I had taken a biomedical engineering class, intro class, and I think I took like two classes in it, like just attend. And I literally felt like the professor was speaking another language. Like I didn't know what he was doing. It wasn't that he had an accent. It was that the concept was so foreign to me that I was like, there's no way I can major in this. So I was like, biomedical is not it. I can't keep taking like intro classes because time is gonna go. So I went to the career development. I was like, let me figure out this civil thing. So I went and I sat with a civil engineer for the whole day, like the whole 8 hours. And I understood, like it just made sense, even though I didn't know what she was doing, but it was something that I saw myself possibly doing. And so I got to see a presentation in the middle of the day. I sat with her next to her on the computer. Obviously, I wasn't doing anything, but just being exposed to it, I was like, okay, this kind of makes sense. I see myself doing this. And so, yeah, that's why I majored in civil engineering.
Nice. Full transparency. I was a biomedical engineer. I graduated in I and I wanted to say I totally understand where you're coming from as far as biomedical engineering seemingly looking like a different language altogether.
Yeah, you
Towards the
have
end,
to know the medical and then you have to connect it to the engineering part. So
combining the engineering with
yeah,
the
that was,
medical, it was a mind blowing for the entire time of my degree program at ASU. That's where I went to do my undergrad, and I struggled so much in one of the last classes for the program. I can't remember the exact name of the course or the class, but I remember so many of us, we were essentially relying on each other to make sure that we even understood the basic foundational knowledge for that course, right?
yeah.
But I'm glad you took the civil engineering route.
Yeah. Not that it was, I mean, it was still hard.
Sure,
Nothing in
sure,
engineering was easy. Like nothing.
right.
Absolutely nothing was easy for me. But somehow, miraculously, one class after the other, I just made it through. Yeah.
Alhamdulillah. And speaking of miracles and inspirations, I guess, can you tell us a little bit of like early influences that kind of helped you through your education and through the early career journey? Like, is there any particular person or someone you mentored that kind of helped you shape into who you are right now?
Yeah, I would definitely say it was my dad. I remember my first week in college, we had a physics quiz. Like, who takes a quiz the first week of college? Like, we're still trying
That's
to find,
nuts.
yeah, we're still trying to find like where the classes are. And so I was like all overwhelmed, like so overwhelmed. I was crying. I've never cried before from school. And then I remember him telling me, like, I don't care if you fail, like, if you give it your best and you just like flunk the whole semester, like, at least you gave it your best. And then I was like, okay, like, I'm allowed to fail, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I think just having that relief, like, the world is not going to be over if I do fail, right?
Yeah, right.
And just having the approval of my parents for that, I think that really helped. And alhamdulillah, I never failed, never had to retake a class.
Alhamdulillah.
Allah is so generous. I just learned to study smarter. Like every semester, I was like, I can't keep, like, these concepts are like so hard. Like, at least for me, some people, mashallah, like, they were acing calculus. I'm like, I don't even know. There's no more numbers in calculus after a certain point, right? And they were. I
Right.
had like a bunch of Malaysians, international students, and they would be like, "Yeah, I got a 98, a 97," and I was getting like half of that. No joke, right? And luckily in college, they have the curves,
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And I was just like, I literally thought nobody could pass these classes until like the Malaysians opened up and told me that they're
The
getting
Malaysians are
90.
something else,
Yeah,
mashallah. They're super smart.
yeah. And I was just like, you know what? Everybody, has their strengths and weaknesses.
You're right.
You
Yeah.
know, another thing my father had shared with me, and it was just like so logical. But sometimes you're like so emotional because you've never done so bad in your life. And he was like, listen, they have a brain just like you. It's not like they have an extra brain, right? Because I'm thinking they're super smart. Like their brain is like this big instead of this big. Like, no, like Allah gave all of us the same capacities, right?
Absolutely.
Just
Yeah.
some people, I guess now, me being older, right? Some things come just easier for some people, but we all have the capacity to strengthen that muscle that maybe is not our strong suit right now, right? So, but just what got me through was just knowing like they have the same tools that I do. It's not like,
Yeah.
they have a
Right.
superpower that I don't have.
Right. Right. Oh, shout out to all the supportive dads out there and moms, and supporting their children in their educational journey. Right. It certainly can be very difficult, both for the child and for parents. Right. Alhamdulillah, glad that you had a supportive dad and parents to guide you through your college years, right? And
Yeah.
inshallah, I hope to be a supportive dad for my children, inshallah.
Yes.
But on that note, and so one of the things that we love exploring here in this podcast is about the intersection of our faith, Islam, with the professional life, right? With our professional lives and how we integrate the Islamic duties within our daily work routines. So, can you tell us a little bit about how you have, or rather, how your faith, Islam, has influenced some of the career choices early on, and even now in your professional approach?
Yeah, I mean, in engineering, I wasn't really living the best. Like, oh, I'm so proud. Like, I didn't feel like Islam could influence me. Besides, I was like the only hijabi in the whole company, right? Or in
Right.
that office. It was a big company. It was 10,000 people all over the world and stuff like that. But in that office, there was other Muslims, but what I call some of the men were undercover Muslims. Like, they just never said salam, never acknowledged my existence.
Oh my
His name
goodness.
is his name was Muhammad. I'm like, you can't get more Muslim
That
than
is
that,
so.
right?
Yeah.
And I was coming from MSA being like, I was really active in MSA. I was like so happy. So now we're like, thinking I'm gonna recreate MSA life in the
Right,
corporate
right,
world.
right.
Nobody was happy to be Muslim in the corporate world, except for I did have one Indian coworker lady, and she was very proud to be Muslim. She just didn't cover. And so she kind of, to be honest, she kind of paved the path for me. Like I went and I asked her, I was like, where can I go to pray? Like, I don't know. Like, there's like a prayer
Yeah,
space.
right, right.
Yeah, so alhamdulillah, she showed me her prayer space. I was like, thank God. Like, yay, there's a place to pray. So besides that, I mean, I wasn't surrounded with people who were happy to be Muslim, and so I almost felt like, and she would tell me what people are talking about behind my back.
Yeah.
They're like, oh my God, people are like, I'm the first covered Muslim woman in engineering that these people have ever seen. And so, to be honest, most of the people, like 99.9%, were absolutely nice. I had like one bad incident in 7.5 years. So, for them, I feel like that was awesome because a lot of
Right.
times people are not that receptive to Muslims. But I was really blessed to have amazing coworkers. And that was one of the reasons why I kind of stayed longer because I felt so accepted. I hated the work. Hated the work. It came to a point where I just hated the work, but I loved the environment and people were just like not in your face, but they let you be. So,
Right.
alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah, it makes a huge difference, and it's almost a day and night difference when the work can be as dry as you know dry as possible, right? And it can be the most boring job, but if you have the supportive team, or if you're in a very supportive environment at work, that can make the world of difference for you. enjoying the work, being able to practice Islam, the way that should be, and being free, being able to be yourself, right? Whether Rather than closeting or like, putting a facade almost every single day, right? And pretending that you enjoy when in fact you would rather, leave the company the very next day, right? Just because you have a terrible coworker or you have a very horrible boss, right? So, alhamdulillah that you had a work environment. With that said, those who let's say don't necessarily have that kind of supportive environment or don't have the supportive people around them, colleagues and bosses and direct reports, what would you say, or what would be your advice to kind of help ease their way into making it more supportive and being able to practice Islam in the way that it should be?
I would really, I'm thinking like back to when I was in my 20s. It's hard. Like life is hard. just, and I'm just like, just take the easy route and switch companies. Like, is it really worth it to fight? No, really. Like, I heard of, like, and Allah tests everyone differently. So maybe that was like my ease. But like, I'll just give you guys an example of like how supportive and open they were. So, I'm always surrounded, like I live in a city, people are always cursing like all the time around me in the city that I live. And so one time at work, like I'm just like frustrated, you're under all this stress. And then there's this one coworker who's just F this, F that, and I'm like, we are not in the street. Like in my head, I'm just like, this is ridiculous. Like we're all educated engineers. Like this is not proper professional adab. So I was like, I'm gonna send an email to the department head, not my manager. This is the person on top of my manager.
You're right.
And I literally told him that. I was like, I can understand if like you're on a deadline and the computer's not working and you're really, yeah, F this, F that. Like I understand the stress, but you're just telling someone a story. Okay. I don't need you to hear F bombs like every 2 seconds. Okay. So I wrote a really nice long email to my department head. All of a sudden he comes into my cubicle. I feel like he's coming in right now. Right. And he was like, Amaney, I totally understand what you're saying, and you're absolutely right. I was like, the CEO doesn't go around cursing. Like, don't tell me, like, right? And I had like all my pointers. And I told him, I understand if we're under a lot of stress and, you're just going to use that language because of the stress that you're in.
Right,
There
right.
was only really one person that was part of his language that he was always cursing. I was just like, I can't handle it anymore. And so he privately talked to them. He didn't talk to them obviously in front of me. And so anytime they felt the need to curse around me, they were very conscious. So after that, they were like, they knew like, okay, she had a point. This is not proper office behavior. And they actually stopped and they were conscious of. I'm not saying it never happened again, but it went down drastically. But this is like something so minor compared to like a lot of people. There's like, people out to get them, and I hear all these stories and stuff. But imagine having a boss like this where you're like, this is not proper behavior, and he takes actions to make sure I'm comfortable versus you're dealing with 10 times worse.
Right.
There's good
Yeah.
people just as like there's people that don't care. So why are you putting yourself in an environment with people that have so much hatred towards Muslims and Islam when you could go and there's these other people, even if they're not Muslim, but you know, they're so kind. So I
Yeah.
would say pick your battles and just go somewhere where you're more accepted.
That's a great advice. Honestly, if the place that you're working in is, not, conducive to the work that you were trying to produce, right, and the output that you're trying to create, right, and doesn't really benefit you holistically speaking, better to leave it altogether than to, try to create change when the uphill battle's, far too steep. Right? And I wanted to say kudos to you for taking the right steps because honestly, I think majority of the people, not just Muslims but just in general, would just be passive and kind of let it slide or, um, try to ignore it, and without properly addressing it. So no, good for you for taking the right steps and making sure that they don't start they don't throw f bombs or start cursing like every 3 seconds, right? And actually, as we were telling the story, I remembered in the previous episode, the guest speaker was saying that we need to, whichever environment that we excuse me, that we are in, we need to make a concerted effort to be proud of who we are, right? Being proud of being Muslim, and not hiding that fact, right? And especially at the workplace where you're in front of so many different kinds of people, it's like almost a form of dawah too, right? Where the way you conduct yourself, the way you present yourself, the way you talk, the way you even send emails, right? Everything has adab, everything has a way of doing things properly. So, no, good for you, mashallah, for speaking up and really showing the way that Muslims should really conduct business. So, alhamdulillah, I'm glad to hear your story about and some of your experiences about your work as a civil engineer. Let's kind of pivot over to your current role in the industry that you're currently in. Just in general, walk us through like a typical day or week in your current position, and what is it that people can expect when they first see you for the first time?
Yeah, I mean, as a founder, there's no there's no 9 to 5. You're just like, oh my gosh, what's an emergency? Like yesterday, before I like kind of clocked out, the emails weren't working. Like I had an email
Oh,
error message,
man.
and I'm like, oh my gosh, like, and it was, I spoke to IT, and IT's like another language that I don't understand. So it was biomedical. And I was like, you know what, tomorrow, like I just can't do this right now. So yeah, so there's no and I think that's what I would want people to realize. Like if you're starting something, I always was like, is this the right way? Is that the right way? Is this how I should do my social media? Just start. Just start is the right way. Do the next step. That's the next step. Whatever you think the next step is there's no right way of starting a company, of starting a project. Just what you think is the next step. The only wrong way is to stop. That's the only wrong
Okay.
way. Yeah, you're not taking action thinking, and the thing is, right, I think it comes from the engineering, right? It's like, but I could
Hmm.
look it up and it could be better, right? And we're perfectionists and we're like to the T, to the four
Exactly.
decimal points, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
In finding, like, starting a project, no, like you don't need that right now. We're not building a bridge. The coordinates don't have to match up. It's like just go, go, go. You have to go as fast as you could in the shortest amount of time possible. So just, I had, from when I started, there was like I had different mentors, and it would just go based on conversations or based on something I learned or a YouTube thing that I learned, and then I just go on the next step. The next step could be something I do for the next half hour. It could be what I do for the next week.
Right.
But really, the way to accelerate is to invest in yourself in terms of getting coaches. Coaching is the way to do it if you don't want to waste so much time. So that's what I've realized. I've had coaches that taught me about confidence, about sales. And now, like, the current coach that I'm working with is about funnels, and that's why like the
Okay.
emails wasn't working, and then I had to speak to IT and stuff. I would say if you have the investment, to invest in yourself, like believe so much in your project that you're like, I'm willing to take the risk, because we're so ready, I think, as Muslims, to like, believe in the masjid and believe in the
Right.
nonprofit and
Right.
donate. And when I was switching the scenario to myself, because I was a nonprofit before, and I was like, now I'm going to donate to myself. Okay. I'm going to
Right.
believe in myself. This is my project, and I want everything that, all the money that I'm investing in it, I want it to be considered a sadaqah for me. Right. And the good thing about my business is that it's something to uplift the ummah, right? So all the income is going to go to
Yeah.
Muslims,
Yeah. Right.
all the
Right. Right.
output is for Muslims, right? So it's something to help not just in dunya, and it's for dunya and akhirah. Like it's so jam packed with like the good deeds, right? It's just
Yeah.
piled
Right.
over. But what does it need to start is I have to believe in myself. I have to invest in myself. I know I kind of didn't answer your question because there's no roadmap. You're kind of like
Right.
gonna
Yeah.
see
Yeah.
what works, and then you'll have a roadmap. And I haven't reached the point where it's like, the wheel that's going to go by itself. It's not there yet. I think I'm very close to that, but yeah, I'm just not there yet.
I love that because in a lot of ways, you mentioned some key things for like entrepreneurs and founders to keep in mind, or those who are potentially looking to create their own movement or organization or start a business of any kind. Not to be a perfectionist, right? Not to be you don't have to put the engineering hat on or be a type A person to start something, right? You just gotta, like you said, believe in yourself and start, take the first step, right? Even if it's a baby step, but at least you're on your way into something, right? um and another beautiful thing about that is that there's no real blueprint, because if there were, then you'd be stuck in guardrails that really don't really pertain to you a lot of the times, right? So for example, starting something like Sacred Soulmates, right? Coaching and matrimonial services, for example, will definitely not apply to someone who wants to start their own marketing agency, right? Or or open a flower shop, right? Or start a school, right? So being an entrepreneur has that benefit of being creative with whatever you want to start, right? And utilizing your tools and mentors that's ready for your disposal, and sorry, at your disposal and ready for you to use, so that you can achieve what you want to achieve. So alhamdulillah, no, I think that's a great answer. And I think it's a good segue into the next question I want to ask you, is about like comparing your corporate life, right, your experiences as a civil engineer, and also even if we want to include ICNA relief in there, to what you're doing right now, or what you've been doing for the past 2 years, about being your own boss, being an entrepreneur, a founder of mashallah, a very successful um, business model. What are the pros and cons, like advantages and disadvantage of corporate life versus entrepreneurial life? What would you say about that?
Yeah, definitely. In the corporate environment, what I've realized is that we have the illusion that our next paycheck is guaranteed, right? And I used to think when I was in engineering, because we had a lot of layoffs when I was there, it was after um,
Yeah.
I think the recession started 2010. People were
Yes.
getting that same boss that was like so kind to me about the cursing. Like, unfortunately, he would like, we knew recessions were happening. And when we saw him, we were like, oh my gosh, I hope he doesn't come to me. Right. It was hard because you
Yes.
saw,
Yes.
people are getting laid off left and right. And you knew they weren't hiring engineers. So I survived all of that thinking that was like the ultimate test of tawakkul at the time. My paycheck might stop if I get like this job. If I get let off of this job. But with entrepreneurship, and this is with any business that people have, and I never realized it until I was in it. Like, even someone who owns a deli, like, if nobody walks into that deli, you don't have money for rent. You don't have money to feed your kids. You don't have money for your own expenses. Like that,
That. Yep. It's a
that
scary
is,
thought.
yeah, that is the ultimate test of tawakkul. Like,
Yes.
it's a different level. But then I have to remind myself, right? Just like Allah is the provider when you're part of a big company, He's still the provider if it's just you and him. And I like to think of it like Allah is the CEO now, right? Because He's the one.
Yes. Yeah.
Either He's gonna bring the customers
Absolutely.
or He's not, right? Like, things, so much more is out of your hands. So if you want to test your tawakkul, go start a business. But that's the difference. And I know not a lot of people have, I like to say, the luxury, but I really think as Muslims growing up in America, like, the ummah needs more people to take that leap. Okay, I know it's comfortable having the six figures, working for corporate America, but it's like, if us as Muslims who are growing up in America with the luxuries of clean water, AC, and you get to do the temperature to the right, like, no,
Right.
no, I
Yep.
want it 72. No, no, I like it 67. Like, we have such luxuries in America that people around the world don't have. Like, what are we doing with our life? Like, we need to live more purposeful lives. We need to do
100%.
something more with the talents that Allah has given us. Like, something that it was a discussion I had with the CEO of Ikna Relief when I was getting hired, and why I actually took the job was he was like, look at how many Muslim doctors we have and not one Muslim hospital in America. And that was their
Yeah.
vision. That was their
Yep.
vision. I was like, let's do it. Like, I'm like, there's nothing too big for me. Like,
Right. Yeah.
I took the engineering and I was like, there's nothing that's too big for us to do. Right. So who's going to do it if we don't do it? we need
100%.
we need to step up. We need to stop with the comfort or have a game plan. Okay, if you're like, oh no, that's too much of a tawakkul thing for me, but Allah's still the provider, whether you're working for corporate America or if you're working for yourself. But who's gonna take the ummah to the next level if it's not us? Even if it's stuff we're doing here in America, you know. So
Yeah.
that's what
Yeah.
I would really love for people to think about.
Yeah. No, 100%. As you've heard many times, comfort is the enemy of growth, right? Comfort is the killer of growth, right? No one really grows as a person, or the business doesn't grow, when they're just sitting comfortably, the paychecks come in, every 2 weeks, right? And you have like you were saying, the AC right at the perfect, no one proves, let's just say, as a person, as a business owner, as whatever capacity, when you're comfortable. It's when you're pushed to your limit, or you feel like your back's against the wall, is when you realize, oh, okay, I need to start thinking of different ways to make this work. I need to think of different ways to um, improve my family situation. I need to think of different ways to improve my own life, or being healthier, or whatever goal you have, right? We need to, and also that kind of leads into accountability too. When you don't take accountability to your own objectives that you've placed for yourself, you're essentially killing your own growth, or your growth projection for your own life, right? So, and I think that leads to my next question about the ethics of doing business, right? And being an ethical entrepreneur, business person, or just corporate man or corporate woman, right? What are some things in, in your mind, or that you've experienced, are at least important to keep in mind when it comes to corporate conduct, or just in doing business dealings in general? What would you say are like very important things to keep in mind?
I just really only have one thing, to be honest, is
Okay.
just always be conscious like Allah is your witness, right? Whether you're in corporate, whether you're working for yourself, whether you're doing a business deal one on one, like realize, right? Even if my boss isn't going to find out how much time I put on the project, because, it's not like we're tapping in and out, right?
Right.
Engineering is like just do your timesheet at the end of the week and you have to say what projects they were and stuff like that. Just realize Allah's going to ask you about that, right? Say you put in
Yeah.
an extra hour and you really didn't work that hour, but you're getting
Right.
paid for it. But the rules of the company are you have to clock in 40 hours. Just realize
Right. Right.
Allah's like you're getting paid for an hour that you didn't work for. So how is Allah going to place barakah in that for you?
Right. Yeah.
So keeping that in mind and just realizing like I did something in the 7.5 years. I feel like it was like really a different lifetime. It's such a long time ago. Um, that I do want to share because sometimes we feel like, oh my gosh, like, I can't get out of this. But I was working as an engineer when Ramadan was in the summer and we were fasting until like 8:30, 8:45. And you had to still do the 8 hours. I physically could not do it. Like around 1, 2, I'd literally be like at my desk, like I can't even keep my eyes open, like let alone focus and actually get work done. And so I went and I spoke to my boss. I was just like, I don't know what to do. I literally, I'm fasting. They knew about Islam and at least they knew we fasted. I was like, I'm fasting. I literally can't keep my eyes open. Like, what can I do? And they allowed me for all of Ramadan to leave half a day. Obviously, I wasn't getting paid the 40 hours. I didn't care.
Oh, okay,
Yeah, I
okay.
didn't care for the 40. I'm just like, pay me what I work.
But you were willing to take that, I guess, that hit for being able to practice, your
Yeah,
deen.
I
Yeah.
couldn't, like, what am I gonna do? Like, I physically cannot keep my eyes open and it's Ramadan. Take the
Right,
whole
right.
month off or work half days. And so they were like, yeah, that's totally fine. Work half days. And then I ended up doing like half day Fridays just for me or something because I just realized work was getting too much. But just realized, like, again, this is why if you have good people, like, stick with them instead of like feeling like you're stuck and suffocated and you're always like, I have this one friend who's always like, I feel like either she's always picking bad companies or she just has bad luck, but just go to a company that people love you, are willing to be accommodating. I was able for a whole month and I did it for a few years because Ramadan was in the summer. It takes a long time to come out of summer. And it made my Ramadan experience so much better, right? I was able to give to work what I could, and then I was able to still be Muslim and like be a human. Like,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
physically couldn't fast for 8 hours. Like, I mean, go to work for 8 hours and be fasting the whole time. So, alhamdulillah, they were super accommodating. So, you never know what the company is going to be willing to do unless you ask for it.
100%. Yeah, you really don't know what the answer truly is for any problem that you might think there might be until you ask, right? And then inshallah, after you ask, the hopefully the answer is a positive one, so that you'll be able to practice your deen appropriately and properly, alhamdulillah, and also get paid. That's ideal. But like you said, Allah is the provider, no matter what situation you're in. So your earlier advice about tawakkul in Allah, right, will definitely pay off, if not immediately, but down the road for sure. And so, with that in mind, right, I wanted to kind of also pivot over to part of the conversation about accountability in the sense that, as you know, there are, so many companies that are ending up on the BDS list, right, because of complicity with, uh, certain, let's say, certain groups, certain countries committing either genocide or human rights violations or what have you. And so, as a Muslim or just a person of conscience, let's just say that, right? What steps would you take if you were, let's say, in someone's shoes and they found out that the company you work at is either directly or indirectly linked to, you know, this particular conflict or genocide or what have you? Well, what would your thought process be like, and what actions would you take?
Yeah, I really, to be honest, I don't know what I would do because when I was like in engineering, I was just an engineer. And that's why I really understand when people decide to stay, like it's hard, right? I remember
Yeah,
making dua for that we would win projects because they always made it seem like if we don't win the next project, like I'm going to have to lay off people. And it's like
right.
this is just the way the industry was until later on when I realized that I was like, I'm not making dot no more for this. I need to leave this company. But it's like they always had this mindset, which is true, right? You need to win, keep winning the next contract, the next contract, the next contract to be in business. But
Right.
I don't know. I really don't know. I know a lot of people, if you have that inclination where you're like, I think I can do it, just go for it. Just go for it because nobody's going to come and like tell you this is the way to go. Like there's no sign that's going to tell you that. And if you don't have it in you, like just try to be the best Muslim that you can be. Like, I mean, us being in this country is supporting the genocide, let's be real.
Yeah. Yeah.
And sometimes I'm like, I understand they're like, oh, as Muslims, we did so much with the BDS movement, but like all of us are paying taxes. Unless you're not paying taxes, and you can tell me how I can get out of paying taxes. I think there is like some way to somehow
Yes,
come out
there
of
are,
paying
but
taxes.
a lot of it is not legal per se. But that's a different
Yeah, so
conversation.
I'm like, my brain can't. That's like again, like biomedical engineering. I'm like, I can't process that right now. But just realize that, right? And what is really being an entrepreneur? If you really want to be able to like take the leap, take that leap because guess what? You could pick up and move to another Muslim country just like that. You don't have to take
That's
permission from your boss. You don't have to take permission from the government. You know, you become your own boss. You become your own government. Like, I just feel like that's where Muslims should go if we want to uplift the ummah again and we really want to make an effective change. Like, why not? Again, in America, we're given so much liberties and given so many gifts that I feel like people around the world don't have access to as easily.
I'm so glad you mentioned that because, I think the system has been designed so a lot of people right after schooling, after their secondary education, they just become corporate slaves in the corporate machine and just doing what needs to be done for the paychecks to come. The system or the government has been doing, let's just say it as it is. They've been pretty effective about keeping that system intact and making sure that the production of corporate slaves keeps on going as is, right? But to break that cycle, being more ethical and being more moral, we need to start thinking in terms of entrepreneurship and having that mindset of creating solutions of our own that really benefit the ummah and society as a whole. And the more we can support each other, the more we can see that come to life. I really believe that because, like you said, right? If you really want to, find an ethical company to work at, why didn't you create that company to begin with, right? You could be that ethical business person or boss or CEO, right? And people actually respect that in a lot of different ways because they understand that, opening your own business or starting your own movement has a lot of its risk. But you're willing to take that risk because in the values that you believe in and the values you want to uphold. Alhamdulillah, I'm glad you mentioned all that. So I want to ask another question in light of that, right? I guess a piece of advice to a young Muslim professional who wants to become an entrepreneur. I know you've said a lot of good things, right? Provide a lot of advices, but if there's one thing that they can take away from this conversation and essentially make that, that leap of faith, right? That jump that needs to be, what's that one piece of advice?
I kind of mentioned it before, which is just take the next step, right?
Just take the
Like,
okay.
just
Yeah.
take the next step. Like, people come with like these ideas and then they put the idea on hold, and then you're going to lose momentum. You're going to lose momentum. Like, anything that you come up with, if like today all you have is the idea, I always tell people, did you write it down? Then they're like, no, I have it all in here. And I'm like, yeah, that's not how it works, because you have it in here today and then there's going to be more information coming in and that's going to go out.
Yeah.
And it's not really healthy to have all your ideas in your head too. That's like
Right.
another reason. But you taking even the action of writing down your idea, you get into the process of, I took action, right? I'm not just thinking about doing something, I'm taking action, right? And even in our deen, we know that the one that takes action, you get more reward than the one that has the intention. So I love that people
It's true.
have great intentions, right? But you only get rewarded once for the good intention and then 10 times for actually acting upon it. So that, like, Allah's setting us up, like his reward system is set up to be be an incentive for us, right? Like,
Right.
take
Right.
action.
Right.
Allah's literally telling us, if you take action, I'll reward you 10 times versus you're just thinking about it. So even if the action, and I consider the action starting a Google Doc, start free. You don't need to go buy a website and
Right.
buy a domain and do this and all this stuff that I don't even understand. Start a Google Doc, use the free version of ChatGPT, and be like, ChatGPT, where do I begin? Or whatever version that you think, some people are like, it's not ethical, that too, and stuff. Um, yeah, just do what you think is the next step and just consistently do that. And then with time, you're gonna find that you've come a long way. Like, when I look back to like why certain things started, sometimes it started because of a WhatsApp group. That used to be
Yeah.
my action. WhatsApp is for free, you guys. Like,
Yeah.
put
Yeah.
people in a group and start a discussion. Like, that's taking action. So stop thinking about things and just start taking action. Like, that's it. Just,
One foot forward, one step at a time, right? I'm glad you kind of reiterated that and added a little bit more to that. And I was just thinking, we mentioned that there really isn't a blueprint for entrepreneurship or just starting your own thing. But actually, Allah could provide that blueprint in through examples in history, or like through the role models that we see today nowadays, right? And then Allah provided that motivation, right? Like the reward system, right? Like you have the intention, but you get rewarded for multiple fold for taking the action, right? So I love that advice, right? Just whatever it is, if it's an idea, write it down, and once you've written it down, then talk to somebody, and then talk to more people, right? And then start a focus group, and then one thing leads to another, and then mashallah, you're the founder of Sacred Soulmates or something similar to that.
Yeah, you never know. And I used to think, right, because there was a point in time when I was at ICNA Relief and I'd get all these amazing ideas. Like, I don't know what was happening. And so, subhanAllah, and by the way, me getting the ICNA Relief job was like a dua, like, was like a miracle in of itself. But
Right.
my direct director, because I had a few directors, but my immediate director, she was a Quran teacher, right? And I knew, by the way, after I left engineering, I didn't want to work with non-Muslims anymore. I just, you're always the different one. You're always a different one. You're always a
Right.
different. I was
You
just,
want to try to fit in, or like
yeah,
be
like,
around people that you yep,
yeah,
makes
I
sense.
just wanted to be around Muslims. Like, I was just done. And being in a Muslim environment, it comes with its own challenges. It's not Jannah, you guys.
Of course.
But so I was getting all of these ideas. So I went to her and I was like, I keep getting all of these ideas. Like, is like Allah trying to like tell me something? Because they were so amazing. Like, and I wasn't doing anything to get the ideas. I just got
Right.
them. And she was like, yeah, like that's inspiration from Allah. Right. And so if you get this idea, right, where you're just like, it's an epiphany, write it down before you lose it. Like, you're thinking, oh, tomorrow I'll remember it. Like, the way they link up in your head and you start imagining things and you feel like things are coming together, maybe that's a moment where Allah's opening for you. And that's your first step. And so
Right.
what do you do
Yeah.
with the first step? You take action, you write it down. So yeah, I just wanted to like, just think of things like Allah again is the all witness, right? He's witnessing everything, that even our ideas don't come like, where do ideas form? They're from our brain, from the cells. That's all stuff Allah has given us, right? It's not
Yeah.
like we created ourselves. It's not like we
Right.
created
Right.
our
Right.
brains, right? And so just realize everything that you have in your life right now, everything that you possess, and everything that you want comes from Allah, right? And so
100%.
just use that to increase your faith in Allah. Like, see everything as a direct connection to Allah. And I feel like you become unstoppable more than like these non-Muslim life coaches become, because they're always believing in themselves,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
But what we need to do as Muslims, and this is really important, is that we need to believe in the abilities that Allah has given us. Okay? It's not like I created me. It's not like you created you,
Absolutely.
right? It's a gift. Everything is a gift from Allah, whether it's your physical self or the gifts and talents that Allah has given you. And so we go back to the source. We go back to Allah, and we could continue to ask for him to increase us in it. Right? Until we become even more unstoppable, because they're believing in themselves and we're believing in the creator of ourselves, right? We're believing in the
Yeah.
creator that gave us these abilities.
No, these are great reminders, and definitely we need to be more supportive of each other and remind each other constantly that Allah is always there to back you up, and Allah is always there to answer your call for help, call for whatever guidance that you need, guidance of. So no, I love it. Alhamdulillah. Before we wrap up, I want to give the chance for any the audience and the listeners to be able to connect with you, because mashallah, you're very talented, you're full of wisdom, have a lot of potential for being able to guide emerging talent, right? And those who want to step into the professional world either for the first time or switch over to different careers. So how can the listeners connect with you if they have questions or want to mentor you for whatever reason?
Yeah, so if it's for professional advice, I do have a LinkedIn. That would be easy for me. Whether it's stuff about the services that we have for Sacred Soulmates, you could reach out we're on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. But
Okay.
yeah, I'm on in on LinkedIn too. So inshallah, if anything professional related, I'm still an engineer in that. I like things organized. I'm like,
That's good.
don't mix up
That's good.
things. Yeah, some things don't change, but alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. That's
Yeah.
good. And on that note, because you're the founder of Sacred Soulmates, and mashallah, you were helping couples or soon to be couples to create a beautiful relationship, in accordance to Quran and Sunnah, are there specific ways that you want people to support you and your cause?
Yeah, I would love just share the content, tell your single. I know every household has single, you must have a single cousin, a single sister, a single uncle. Like there's someone single in your house. Just share it with them, share it and just be like, "Hey, I came across this resource. I just thought I would share it with you." You don't need to go into, sometimes we stop ourselves from sharing because we're like, "I don't want to
Yep,
offend them." Just be like, "Hey, I just saw it and I thought of you. Here's the link," right? And that's it. Yeah, so I would
100%.
love that. And if anyone's involved in masajid and they have like, they're in charge of like maybe the programs. I do in-person workshops as well, as part
Okay.
of the services. So you guys can get in touch with me as well through any of the social media handles. And I would love to work with your masjid to bring one of the workshops, bring it to life.
Inshallah, let's make it happen. Uh, bring
Yeah.
Sacred Soulmates to all the masajid, inshallah, and make Sister Amani, successful with her cause, a very noble cause, mashallah. So may Allah bless you and continue to help you succeed.
I mean,
So with that, Amani, thank you so much for sharing your journey with us. I'll definitely refer you to some of my unmarried cousins to make sure, if they're interested, they'll definitely partake of your services, inshallah. But your professional journey, your insights, your advices will definitely resonate with our audience, our listeners, and I know so many will be inspired by your paths. Jazakallah khair. Inshallah, for the listeners, next time we'll see you next week. Inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone.
Thank you for listening to the Tread a Path podcast. You can find all the resources our guests mentioned in the Tread a Path archive in our website, coffeeproductions.com, along with the links to connect with our guest speakers. If today's conversation inspired you or helped you in your own professional journey, we'd love to hear from you. So please leave us a review, share the episode with someone who might benefit, and don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. May your treaded path be blessed and full of wisdom. Assalamu alaikum.